Hey everybody, Lloyd here with Just Got Played, and today I'm going to do another game review. This time it's going to be for the G.I. Joe deck building game Coldsnap Expansion. This is the newest release for the G.I. Joe deck building game from Renegade Games, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about how the new stuff plays. So let's take a look, and we'll come back and I'll tell you what I think of the game. Okay, so this is the new stuff for the Coldsnap Expansion. I'm not going to go through everything that's in the game. You can kind of take a look at my unboxing video to see what all is in there. And I'm not going to go over how the entire game plays. I'm just going to go over this new stuff because these do add some new mechanisms to the game and kind of change up how you will play it. So first off, we'll start with the deck of the Dreadnoughts. So the Dreadnoughts kind of act like, almost like Complications are officers, right? There's a bunch of Dreadnoughts in here. They all have a different ability. They are considered side missions, so only one person can fight them at a time. But they're going to do all kinds of crazy stuff to change the way the game plays. So in this particular instance, Road Pig is going to go on the highest cost uncovered card in the lineup. So a couple of these guys are going to kind of contribute to endgame conditions by covering up cards. They all do slightly different things, and they all have different, stats to defeat them. You're always going to get a bonus for defeating them, but you don't really need to do anything. Like, you could leave them out there for the most part. A lot of them don't check at the end of the turn or at the beginning of the turn to do anything. But like this one does, at the end of each round, put one Cobra Battalion into place. So Copperhead will check each at the end of each round to do stuff. So you do need to pay attention to them. In order to really get them into the game quite frequently and consistently, you do need to play with the Expert Mode card that adds one of them to every story mission. Some of the story missions will pull them out, but there's very few and far between, and there are a few complications that will pull them out. But I found if you really want to get the feeling of having them in the game and constantly mucking up the game, you really need to use the Expert Mode that puts one out with every story mission. The next up, what we have here are Snow Serpents. So Snow Serpents are kind of another Cobra side mission, like the Cobra Troopers or the Battalion or the Ninjas. They're going to come out. What these guys do, though, is they get attached to the story mission, and they're going to add +2 difficulty for every single one that's on there. And a lot of the complications and a lot of the story cards will pull these cards out and attach them. So it'll look like a fairly simple mission that only takes 2 or 3 to complete, but then they'll start throwing Snow Serpents in, or start adding Snow Serpents at the end of every turn, at the end of every round. So these guys can build up pretty quick. They are pretty easy to take out, but they are just kind of annoying. So that is the new Snow Serpents. Nothing crazy with those guys, but they do add a little bit more of a wrinkle. These cards here, these are the towable asset cards. There are not many of them in the game. Essentially, each round, each turn, there'll be 2 of them out. If you use one of them, then at the end of the turn, you'll replace it with another. And these all do different things. Most of them are going to give you extra dice rolls or extra abilities in addition. And you can take one of these on a mission by paying the cost. So the cost up here that's how many G.I. Joe character cards you need to discard in order to bring it. However, some of them, like the MMS here, you can discard a utility instead. So you kind of have to weigh the pros and the cons of, tossing a Joe to get the bonus. But these are kind of cool, and they do, constantly shuffle in and out. And they do add a little extra wrinkle, and they can give you kind of a little bit of extra firepower. And those are the towable assets. And if you watched my unboxing video, you'll see that I had this, and I was like, what is this thing for? So after reading the rules, I essentially figured out that the whole point of this is to display the cards, so you can fit 2 out there. You can display the cards, and it just kind of makes them easy. This is probably, out of all the promo 3D things that they've done, between the hangar and the command center shield, this is probably the most functional out of them all. You don't need it, but it is nice because it just, instead of having a field of cards laying down, this kind of pops the cards up. So that is the towable assets. The last thing that we're going to go over here are the mission cards. And some of them are have an extra little icon here that you have to check. So what are these cards mixed in the middle? These cards mixed in the middle are called snowblind cards. They are group missions, and on this particular mission, the Coldsnap mission, the Arctic Blast one, you basically mix these in between each of the story missions. And what they do is, your deck is normally sitting here like this, and you put a card out, and that's your active mission. Well, now you can't see the next mission. So these all are basically the same. They all cost 3 to get rid of. They all have a different stat that you're going to check for. They all have a different reward for defeating them. Not a different reward, but they all have a reward for defeating them. But the big reason why you want to knock these cards out is because if you defeat this card without defeating this snowblind card, the next time a story mission comes out, which would be the next player's turn, at the beginning of their turn, if this card isn't defeated, this card will get tossed, and you'll have to suffer the penalty whenever you see this little Arctic symbol, this Arctic Blast snowblind symbol down here. So typically it says put 2 snow serpents into play. However, if you did not defeat this mission before the next story mission needs to come out, you're going to get hit with the secondary, which is put 3 into play instead. And these things get really bad as you go through. Some of them require you to roll dice. Some of them require you to add extra officers into play or extra dreadnoughts. So it adds a little bit of extra gameplay twist to bring this out. So you're going to have a lot more stuff going on in any given game with the snow serpents, the dreadnoughts out, these snowblind cards. You just have a lot more things to go after on every turn. So if you combine this with the command center, you're also going to have the ninjas that are possibly in play in the command center to defend, along with all these extra things. So these are the real big changes that are in this set. So that is pretty much it. Let's head back up to see what I thought. So now that you have an idea of how all the new stuff plays, let's go ahead and go through my likes and my dislikes. And we'll just start at the top with the things that I do like about the game, about the expansion. So first off, if you watched my last review on the Shadow of the Serpent expansion, one of my biggest gripes was named Joes, like named characters that I recognized, and I specifically brought up dreadnoughts. Now, this was before I knew what was in this expansion. I didn't even know this expansion was coming out this fast, but I do get. I'm signed up for the newsletters for Renegade Games because I pre-order through their site. So I got this notification. I looked and I was like, "Holy crap, dreadnoughts!" The dreadnoughts are in here, which is really cool. It's kind of odd that they mixed the dreadnoughts with an Arctic expansion, but there are 2 different sets of missions, right? If you watch the unboxing video, you'll see that there were two different missions in the game. One is I think it's called like Arctic Snap or something like that, and the other one is bring on the dreadnoughts or something like that. I forgot the names of them, but one of them is dreadnoughts based, and one of them is specifically ice based, snow based. Although the snow stuff does play into both missions, but not only did they include the dreadnoughts, they didn't do them as like officers like they could have done them, which is kind of what I thought they were going to do, just officers, because they already had Zartan. So I thought maybe they were just going to add extra officers in there and maybe hit a few of the high point, the better known dreadnoughts, like the primary 3, right? which is like Ripper and Chainsaw, Buzzsaw, and maybe they might have got a couple. I kind of figured they were going to do just a couple, but we got all of the Dreadnoks. We got all of them. We got Road Pig. We've got not the twins, but the brother and sister, the siblings. We got Zanzibar. We got all of the Dreadnoks. Copperhead. And not only did they bring them in, they're not brought in as officers. They are specifically their own deck of cards. They are face down, and they are basically there to cause chaos and even more randomness. So whenever you bring them into play, the game will tell you, which points to bring them in. A lot of complications do it, and some of the story missions do it. You're basically going to draw however many it says, you flip them up, and they all have different abilities and they all do different things. Some of them you can let stick around. Some of them you want to stick around because the payoff for defeating them might be something that you can use. Like one of them lets you destroy 2 cards in your discard pile. So if you don't have anything in your discard pile you want to, destroy, then you won't use it there. So you might want to let them stick around. And then some of them actually are more brutal. They really push the end game and try to bring the game to an end faster. So you can't leave them to stick around, right? Because like one of the lost conditions are when the Cobra Battalions start coming out and they start covering up cards. Once you have 5 Joes and that lineup of 6 covered, that's it. The game's over. There's no coming back from that. However, the Dreadnoks, and there's a couple of them that drop down and they cover up cards. They count towards that lost condition. So as soon as you have 5 cards covered up, that's it. You're gonna lose. So they do put a different clock on the game. Some of them do. Some of them stick around and add extra difficulty to the story missions. So they all do different things and they all have a reward for beating them. They are considered side missions, so they're not like officers. They are side missions, so you have to do them individually. You can't take a group after them. But I really like that. They added a really cool mechanism that I really wasn't expecting. I thought they were just going to mix them in as officers and maybe they would come out here and there, kind of like Zartan. So, but now they have that whole separate deck. There is a second Zartan that's in there. That's specifically part of the Dreadnoks. So yeah, I really like the Dreadnoks expansion. The other thing they added that I really liked is the Arctic Blast, the Snowblind cards. I couldn't think of what they were. The Snowblind cards. When you play the Cold Snap mission, you mix in I can't want to call it Arctic Blast. The Snowblind cards, you mix those in, so every other card is a Snowblind card. So thematically, it fits in that you can't, and when you're snowblind, you can't see. It's like being in like fog, or from when you're. They say you're snowblind when like the lights are really bright and they reflect back in your eyes from the snow, or like sun beaming into your eyes. Snowblind. So this works the same way. This card obscures the next story mission, so you can't see what you need to fight the next story mission. And the other mechanism that's in play there is that if you defeat the current story mission without defeating that snowblind mission, whenever it's the next player's turn, a story mission has to come out if there's no story mission. And if the snowblind card is still out there, you have to suffer a penalty on that next card. You'll get rid of the snowblind card. It goes away, so you don't get the reward for it. But the next card could, and probably will, have some form of penalty for not defeating the snowblind. So it's basically like you're not able to tell what's coming at you. So instead of it's almost like an ambush, right? Like you don't know exactly what's gonna be there. So what would normally be there might be, add a couple snow serpents out to this story mission. But now you have to add 2 more Dreadnoks as well, because they got the surprise on you. They got the drop on you because you couldn't see through the snowblind card, right? So that's really cool. I like that. It adds one more thing, because that is one of the things that I did kind of complain about with the base game. And I said the previous expansion kind of helped by adding like the ninjas and the command center. So it gives you something else to pay attention to, because you have a lot of down turns in this game where there's no side missions out. You can't go after the story mission because you don't have the right cards, or there's something preventing the story mission from being accomplished, like Zartan, and you don't want to attempt it without taking out Zartan, but you can't take out Zartan. So having yet another thing on the table to go after. So it's like now on any given turn, you could have a ninja in the command center. You could have a side mission of your own. You could have who knows how many dreadnoughts out, because they don't go away. Those stay out there. You could have snow serpents out attached to the story mission. And then you have the story mission and the snowblind card, and you could still have officers. So there's a lot more stuff going on. So I really like that. I like that there's decisions that have to be made on every turn. That, do I just let the snowblind happen? Do I want to waste resources on that to get, -1 threat or draw a card or whatever the reward is? Do I want to risk letting the snowblind penalty come out? So those are decisions you have to make, especially if the main story card is doing some type of, clock at the end of every player's turn. At the end of the round, it's doing something. Do you want to leave that card out there getting worse and worse and worse when you could take out the snowblind card? Do you just want to take that card out just to get it out of the way and suffer the consequences on the next card? So there's some really good decision making happening there. So it really deepens the game. Also, what I liked in this one is they did include a lot more Joes that I recognized. That was one of my complaints. The last one, they had a lot of obscure Joes that came maybe from later cartoons or from the comics. And a lot of them I didn't recognize. But in here, we get a lot of recognizable Joes, and a lot of the Arctic themed Joes. That's one thing I did forget to mention in the overview. There's a new land type. So normally you have like the air, sea, or land, and now they have an extra terrain type called it's basically just called Arctic. So now it's even closer to Venom Assault, because Venom Assault also has Arctic. But they have this new mechanism. So it's basically another land type, but it does play into a lot of the characters. A lot of the new Joes and even some of the vehicles are looking for or changing the terrain types to Arctic, so that you can get a bonus if you have a lot of those Arctic characters. So I'm hoping they include more in the future, so that they can expand upon that and you get a lot more synergy. So those are like my main likes. Overall, I really liked the whole package. Let's get into some of my dislikes, because I do actually have a few on this one. So one of my big dislikes, I think my biggest dislike right now, is the overall footprint of the game. And while I'm talking here, I'm going to pop up a video or a shot of the new footprint with all of the stuff from both expansions. I really like that they're adding all these new mechanisms, but they added so many things. And every time they add stuff in, it just takes up a bigger footprint. So with the Shadow of the Serpent expansion, they added the whole command center. So that's one whole big chunk of the board. And you have, not only do you have the Cobra Troopers and the Cobra Battalion, but now you have a stack of ninjas. So it's one more stack of cards that's out there, plus the command center. In this one, they actually added even more. They added the towable cards, which are their own little separate deck that you keep out. I just kind of put mine up near the hangar because that makes sense. It's vehicles. Thematically makes sense to go there. They added the new snow serpents. So there's another deck of cards. So now you have 4 little decks of enemy cards, where you used to only have 2, and then with the expansion you had 3. So now you're up to 4 of those extra decks. They also added the Dreadnoks. So they added the Dreadnoks deck of cards. So you have another footprint, yet another deck. And then the actual the snowblind cards. Now those kind of fit into the same deck, so it's not really a bigger footprint, but they do add that element in. But yeah, just the game keeps growing with new mechanisms, and I'd really like them to kind of the way Legendary did it, right? Legendary started adding new mechanisms. Marvel Legendary, they started adding new things where you started expanding out, but they never really got outside of that core footprint of the game board. They added a little bit here and there. They started adding tokens and stuff like that, but the core, the main footprint, having the wound deck, the enemy deck, the master strike, the mastermind deck, the villain deck, and the hero deck, and then down in the corner you had the Maria Hill, and then later they added the sidekicks. So they added the sidekick in, and that was one extra deck, but they really never got outside of that footprint. So your game was always pretty much the same, unless you played with stuff with the tokens they added. So like in the Guardians expansion. But G.I. Joe, they just keep expanding that footprint. So now this card game really takes up an entire table in order to get it all out. And I kind of wish they would just play in the sandbox they've created and hopefully add new things that don't require another massive footprint on the table. So you've got the command center, add some stuff that ties into the command center. You've got, the officer deck, add more officers. You've got the dreadnoks, find a way to incorporate them into other things. But I kind of feel like the next game they're gonna put another thing out on the table that's just gonna take up more space. I'd like to see some different dice or something that maybe you need to roll as part of your thing to mess with your roll or something like that. Something, added mechanism that doesn't require setting out a new area to put another deck of cards because you've already got way too many. You've got so much stuff going on. It's really hard to keep track of everything and keep it all on the table. So that's my biggest gripe. My next gripe is really going to come down to it's a personal preference for me. I don't keep my expansion boxes unless I really have to. So right now the insert fits the main game plus one expansion. I brought it up in the previous review that it doesn't look like, or maybe it was a previous unboxing. I brought up that it didn't look like they were going to be able to get many more expansions in there, and they can't. Even if you don't sleeve your cards, the well where you put all of your story missions, right now it's already overflowing. Like the story missions that they added plus the snowblind cards do not fit in that well anymore. So you're kind of forced to either remove the insert altogether, which is probably what I'm going to do, or wait for them to release some type of all-in like box where they kind of map out. Maybe they have a better idea of their sales and what they're looking for. Now they know this has legs. I mean, they put out 2 expansions this year. The game just came out at the end of last year. So hopefully they have kind of an idea of where they're going, and they have a roadmap, and they'll put out just a box that will house everything that they've already released and then some. The other thing that doesn't fit is they keep including these 3D things with the promo packs, right? So if you pre-order, you get these promo packs, and they typically come with a couple cards, and then they come with some type of little 3D element. Now, this is probably the best, most functional element they've included, and I like it. But I have no place to put it. Like, it doesn't fit in the box. The other stuff that's in there doesn't really fit in the box either. And I don't want to get rid of it, especially this one. This one is functional. I kind of like what this one does. But it doesn't fit. So what am I supposed to do with it? I could keep the expansion box, but I try to reduce my expansion boxes down on all my games as much as possible. It could come down to the same thing I have to do with Legendary and what I did with Marvel United, which is buy some of those 3,000 card boxes that you use for sports cards or Magic cards or whatever to house them all, because that's what I've done with both Marvel United and Marvel Legendary. So if you look, I still have all these expansions, but that's all the boxes I have left. And that's mainly because there's a ton of minis, and there's some stuff that it was easy to put in those, and then the rest are in other boxes, those big card boxes. So I'm hoping they come up with something like that to house all of this stuff. But yeah, those are really my minor nitpicks, and they're not related to gameplay. They're related to more of the form of the game. So the game keeps getting bigger and expanding, and I'm running out of room to house it all on a table, and it doesn't all fit in the box. And I don't want to keep expansion boxes. So I'm hoping they maybe at some point offer a G.I. Joe Command Center box or something, and you just put everything in there. That would be great. But those are my kind of minor nitpicks. I will say this. If you play the game and you don't use the expert mode cards that always put a Dreadnought into play, you will not see the Dreadnoughts very much. I went through the entire Dreadnought story mission, the story campaign, and I only had 1 or 2 Dreadnoughts actually come out during the entire thing. And that's because the luck of the draw and the complications, and there's only a handful of story cards that bring them out. If you want to get the Dreadnoughts in and have them come out, you really need to use that expert mode. That's not a dislike or a gripe. It's just an observation. If you want to see a lot of the Dreadnoughts, you want to put that card out so that every time you flip a story mission, it pulls a Dreadnought into play. I think that is mandatory if you want to see how the Dreadnought module works. Otherwise, you just won't get enough of it. The other thing, again, this is an observation, not necessarily gripe. The game keeps getting bigger, so that means your Joe's deck keeps getting more and more large and unwieldy. I would like. I did play the game. I played played both of the missions. I played them once each just to kind of go through them and get a feel for all the mechanisms that are in there. The first one I played, I did not do the expert mode where you pull out 21 cards from the base game. I would recommend also doing that. And maybe even seeding the deck with things that you want to take out. I just did it randomly. So I lost a few vehicles that way, which does hurt. But I think that's probably the best way to do it. Otherwise, your deck is just going to get very large, and you're never going to see, you could play the whole game and not get the cards you need to see, and really no chance of getting them, especially in a solo game. You're not going to burn through enough of that deck to see all of those cards. And I think it's probably the best way to do it is probably just to pull out 21 cards from the get-go, and maybe even more. Maybe you only play with one expansion or the other, so you don't get all the Joes, or maybe just kind of handpick like you do with Legendary. Put in. This time I want to take this group of Joes and leave behind certain ones, or leave out certain equipment or utilities. Just because you end up with a really dead lineup sometimes because the cards you need aren't there in your deck. What I noticed is my deck was getting very large this time because I was trying to buy the cards to get to cycle in new ones. So I would definitely say maybe play with both of those expert mode cards, so you get rid of base game cards, and you always have the Dreadnoughts coming in. Overall, though, I really liked this one. I liked that I recognized a lot of the Joes. There was more iconic Joes in there. I really liked the Dreadnoughts. I think that's a really cool module that you can play with. and it adds a ton of like randomness to the game, and it adds just more stuff to do. That was always been kind of my big complaint about this, is that if I knock out a story mission, or I don't have a side mission, or I can't go after any of the story missions or officers that are out, I really can't do anything. I can't really contribute. And in a multiplayer game, you might have a better way to, a better chance to do it. But if the game is looking for explosives and I don't have none of my cards have explosives, it really doesn't make sense for me to start the mission and only be able to take a handful of Joes, and one of my Joes is basically giving 1 die. So, you know what I mean? So having all these multiple new targets to go after is a welcome change and update. And like I said, they did it a little bit with the Serpentor expansion, and now with this one, they've added just a ton more like targets. There's targets everywhere to go after. Every turn, there's stuff everywhere. It's very rare that you're not going to get stuff to go after. Between the Snow Serpents, the Dreadnoks, the Coldsnap cards, you can basically, you have targets all over the place. And I will say, because of all the extra targets and a lot of them giving like benefits of threat going down, my threat was never really even close to the red. So I probably will start playing with all of these new cards, because all of these cards are really, really powerful. And if you get them early on, they can really make a difference with what you're doing. So I probably will start playing with a lot more of those expert mode rules, just to make the game a little tighter. But overall, I think this is another win, and I would definitely pick up the Coldsnap expansion. That's pretty much going to do it. As always, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Leave us some comments down below. I will try to answer any questions you have about the expansion or even the previous expansion. Also, down in our description and the show notes, we will have links to all of our social medias. So come follow us on Facebook. You can participate in polls for videos that we are going to be posting. If you come hang out with us on Discord, you can chat with us about games, whatever games. We have off topics, so we talk about not games. We talk about video games, talk about all kinds of stuff. So come hang out with us on Discord. You can participate in some giveaways while you're on there that are related to the channel. And the only way you're really going to find out about them is to come hang out on the Discord and see, follow along and see what's going on with those different contests and stuff. So that's going to do it for me. That's it. Hope you enjoyed the video. And as always, happy gaming.